Chapter 3, they were discussing how American individualism and Canadian collectivism really manifest differently into their healthcare systems. It's really interesting to me how these cultures can make almost polar opposite healthcare systems. And it reminded me of how in my US healthcare system class last semester, we talked about how healthcare comes down to the idea of individualism. Americans have the idea that they're American and they're free and they can do whatever they want because they're American and free. They can use the healthcare system after they eat as many cheeseburgers as they want or smoke as many cigarettes as they want because that is their right as an American. And that's definitely valid considering the ideals that America were built on individualism and doing what you desire. So in Bar Chapter 3, they were going over these differences, and they had a chart talking about how American healthcare is founded in distrust of the government and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, while Canada's is based in a central, strong government and maximizing common good. So this idea is really organized into 4 ideals that Canada's healthcare is based on, and we'll talk about how those are very different from U.S. healthcare. So healthcare as a basic right for all Canadians is the first one. So the government provides a universal coverage through a publicly funded system, and this system ensures that all Canadians have access to necessary medical care regardless of their income or employment status. This aligns with Canada's cultural emphasis on social equity, collective well-being, and a strong sense of community responsibility. Canadians generally view healthcare as a shared resource that benefits society as a whole, which is very different from how the U.S. Views healthcare, which is as a commodity. The United States primarily relies on a market-driven healthcare system where access depends on private insurance or personal means. While public programs like Medicare and Medicaid support certain groups, many people remain uninsured or underinsured. This system reflects America's cultural values of individualism, personal responsibility, and limited government intervention. Healthcare in the U.S. is, again, seen as a commodity rather than a guaranteed right, leading to disparities in access and outcomes. The second ideal that Canada's healthcare is based on is the power of the medical profession being bound by social obligations. In Canada, the universal healthcare model ensures that physicians operate within a framework aimed at equitable access to care. Canadian doctors, while being highly respected professionals, work within a publicly funded system where societal health takes precedent over profit. The government sets guidelines for services, fees, and priorities, emphasizing that the medical profession serves as a collective well-being for all citizens. And this limits the market's forces or the influence of the market on healthcare, reinforcing the fact that it's a right and not a privilege. In the United States, the healthcare system is heavily influenced by the market and private interests. While American physicians are bound by ethical principles, the system often incentivizes profitability through their fee-for-service model. The fee-for-service model rewards high volumes of procedures and treatments that might not always align with broader social obligations like addressing health inequities or preventative care. This often leads to a lot of physicians upcoding or just possibly scheduling too many operations or tests to make sure that a patient, one, can be fully covered and they won't get sued, but also they can profit off of those services they provided. The third principle that Canada is based off of is that Canada has a single-payer system. And in a single-payer system, the government acts as the sole payer for medical services, ensuring universal access and reducing administrative costs. The system simplifies healthcare by standardizing payments and eliminating the need for multiple insurance providers. This approach highlights Canada's commitment to social equity, prioritizing healthcare as a public good, and ensuring that everyone receives care regardless of income, which is very different from the United States because we have a fragmented payment system with multiple payers, including private insurance, employer-sponsored plans, and government programs. This complexity leads to higher costs and disparities in access. We see that in the book. They say that Canada charges 2.5 times less than America does for the same services. The last principle I want to go over is that Canada operates under a single standard of healthcare, meaning that all citizens have access to the same level of care regardless of income or status. This principle ensures equity, which is exactly what Canada is based off of. The system prioritizes medical need over financial ability. Universal healthcare reflects Canada's cultural commitment to fairness and collective responsibility, with no private insurance allowed to cover services that are already provided by the public. This prevents wealthier individuals from receiving faster or better care, much like how the U.S. does not prevent. In contrast, the US has a multi-tiered healthcare system where quality and speed often depend on one's means or insurance coverage. Wealthier Americans can access premium services, shorter wait times, and more advanced facilities. Canada actually almost didn't have this last principle because they were advocating for a two-tier system, and proponents of the system argued that this could reduce wait times or provide more choice, but critics of the system worried that introducing a private tier would undermine equity and divert resources from the public system and prioritize profits over patient needs. This debate really brings us down to Canada's main principle, which is equity. Many people complain about Canada's wait times, saying that they're far too long or you have to wait 6 months for an MRI, but as the book highlighted, many people wait that long because they prioritize who might need it quickest. Whereas in the US, if you can pay for it, you can get it whenever you want. As a society, we must care for not only in the book, on page 65, they were summarizing Canada's system into one quote that says, as a society, we must care about not only how efficiently healthcare services are provided, but also how equitably they are distributed. Overall, we can see how different Canada's system is through this quote and how America runs very differently.